INFJs aren't just empaths or introverts, they're often called the human black mirror. Why? Because being around them can feel like standing in front of a reflection you can't escape. They don't just see who you pretend to be, they reflect back who you really are. That's why some people feel drawn to them while others feel exposed, even uncomfortable. In this video, we're going deep into why INFJs carry this mirror-like energy, the psychological, emotional, and even spiritual reasons behind it. Watch closely, because if you've ever wondered why INFJs unsettle people without even trying, you're about to find out. And if you're an INFJ yourself, this will explain why others sometimes either cling to you or run from you. Before we begin, make sure to hit subscribe and tap the bell icon, because here on Brainy One, we explore the hidden layers of psychology and personality that no one else dares to talk about. They reflect emotional truths people hide. INFJs have an almost unsettling gift. They reflect back the emotions people would rather keep buried. This isn't something they consciously try to do. It's the natural result of their hypersensitivity to emotional undercurrents. While most people only notice what's being said on the surface, INFJs notice the space between the words. They catch the subtle shifts in tone, the micro expressions that flicker across someone's face, or the way a smile doesn't quite reach the eyes. These tiny cues combine into a truth the other person thought they had hidden. For many, this experience feels like standing in front of a mirror that reveals not how they look, but how they feel. Someone might come to an INFJ pretending to be happy, but within minutes, the INFJ senses the sadness behind the act. A confident front may crumble under their gaze because they can feel the insecurity radiating underneath. And often, INFJs don't need to confront it directly. Their calm presence alone makes the other person uncomfortable enough to confront their own hidden truth. This is why people often say they feel seen by INFJs in a way that is both comforting and unnerving. For those who are tired of hiding, the INFJ's ability feels like a safe release. Finally, someone understands without judgment. But for those who cling to their masks, the experience can be deeply unsettling. They may avoid INFJs altogether because being around them forces them to face the very emotions they're trying to suppress. The challenge for INFJs is that constantly absorbing these hidden truths is exhausting. They don't just hear what people say, they feel the weight of what people don't say. It's like carrying around other people's secrets without ever being asked. Over time, this can create emotional overload, leaving INFJs drained by truths that were never even spoken out loud. Still, this mirror-like gift is one of their greatest strengths. It allows them to connect on a level most people can't even comprehend. And it's the first reason why INFJs are often called the human black mirror. They don't just reflect who you pretend to be, they reflect who you really are. They see through social masks. One of the most unnerving qualities of an INFJ is their ability to see through the masks people wear. While most people rely on appearances and surface interactions to judge character, INFJs instinctively read beneath the performance. It's not about being suspicious or judgmental. It's about their natural talent for spotting inconsistencies between what someone shows and who they truly are. Everyone wears masks at times. At work, it might be the professional facade of confidence. In relationships, it might be forced affection, charm, or politeness. In friendships, it might be exaggerated humor or positivity to cover insecurity. Most people get away with these roles because others accept the act at face value, but INFJs don't. They notice the slip-ups, the awkward silence, the flicker of discomfort, the contradiction between words and energy. This makes them both fascinating and intimidating. On one hand, people who crave authenticity feel safe around INFJs because they know they won't be judged for dropping the mask. On the other hand, those who rely on pretense feel exposed. A narcissist who thrives on charm may find their tricks don't work. A manipulator who relies on guilt may sense their tactics being quietly dismantled. An attention seeker may feel oddly uncomfortable when their exaggerations are met with an INFJ's calm, knowing stare. The The irony is that INFJs often don't say anything when they notice. They rarely call someone out directly unless the situation demands it. Instead, they hold on to that awareness quietly, adjusting how they interact with the person from that moment on. To the outside world, nothing may appear different, but deep down, the INFJ has already recalibrated. They no longer fully trust the mask, and they prepare for what lies beneath it. This silent discernment is why INFJs can't be easily manipulated. While others get swept up in appearances, they've already seen behind the curtain. And once they've spotted the truth, they can never unsee it. That's what makes their perception so unsettling. You may think you're fooling everyone, but the INFJ already knows exactly who you are. Their energy absorbs and reflects yours. One of the most mysterious qualities of an INFJ is their ability to absorb the emotional energy around them and reflect it back in ways that often leave people stunned. It's not just empathy in the conventional sense. It's almost like being an emotional mirror. When you're joyful, they feel that joy so vividly, it seems to amplify in their presence. When you're anxious, they pick it up before you even put it into words. And when you're hiding pain, they often carry the weight of it as if it were their own. This energetic absorption makes INFJs uniquely powerful in relationships and social situations. People often describe feeling seen or understood in ways they've never experienced before after talking with an INFJ. That's because the INFJ isn't just hearing what you say, they're feeling the resonance of your emotions within themselves. It's almost impossible to lie to them emotionally because your energy betrays you and they reflect it back without even trying. But here's where it becomes unsettling. This reflection can force you to face parts of yourself you've been avoiding. If you're insecure, the INFJ might reflect that by showing you the gaps between your words and your energy. If you're manipulative, they may mirror back the discomfort you cause, leaving you unable to hide behind your act. And if you're authentic, their reflection creates a sense of safety, encouraging you to go even deeper. For the INFJ, this energy exchange is both a gift and a burden. On one hand, it allows them to connect with people on an almost spiritual level, creating bonds that feel deeper than words. On the other hand, it can overwhelm them when they're surrounded by negativity or dishonesty. They absorb so much that they sometimes need to retreat into solitude just to separate their own emotions from everyone else's. This dynamic, absorbing and reflecting, is why INFJs are often described as mirrors. They don't just observe, they embody what's happening beneath the surface and hand it back to you in a way you can't ignore. For many, this is healing. For others, it's terrifying. But either way, it makes INFJs unforgettable. They hold up a mirror to inconsistencies. One of the most unsettling things about INFJs is their ability to notice when your words, actions, and energy don't align, and then reflect those inconsistencies back to you without saying much at all. To most people, these contradictions slip by unnoticed, but to an INFJ, they stand out like flashing warning signs. And because INFJs naturally mirror back what they observe, people often end up feeling exposed even without confrontation. For example, imagine someone who claims they're confident, yet their body language reveals insecurity. An INFJ won't necessarily call them out directly, but their presence alone makes that person feel the gap between what they say and what they radiate. Or consider a friend who insists they're trustworthy, yet constantly breaks small promises. An INFJ notices the pattern, quietly stores it, and reflects it back in the way they interact. By pulling back, creating distance, or treating that person with cautious reserve, the inconsistency becomes impossible to ignore. This mirroring effect can be deeply uncomfortable because it forces people to confront truths they'd rather hide. The INFJ doesn't need to argue or accuse, they let people reveal themselves. Over time, the mismatch between someone's words and reality becomes so clear that the person either corrects themselves or distances from the INFJ out of discomfort. In this way, INFJs become silent truth tellers, exposing dishonesty and pretenses without ever raising their voice. What makes this even more powerful is that INFJs aren't just analyzing external behaviors. They're picking up on the underlying emotional tone, the unspoken energy behind someone's actions. That's why they're rarely fooled by charm, excuses, or smooth words. When they sense a disconnect, they'll hold it up like a mirror, not to punish, but to reveal. For those who value growth, this is a gift. Being around an INFJ can spark self-awareness and real change. But for those who thrive on manipulation or self-deception, it's terrifying because once an INFJ reflects your inconsistencies back to you, you can no longer hide behind the mask. You have to face the truth, whether you're ready or not. They reflect back people's shadows. Perhaps the most unsettling thing about being around an INFJ is how they unconsciously reflect back the parts of yourself you'd rather keep hidden. Psychologists call this the shadow, the denied, repressed, or unacknowledged traits we bury deep inside. Most people can go through life without ever facing these shadows head-on because the world rarely forces them to. But being around an INFJ is different. They act like a living mirror, revealing not just who you are on the surface, but also the darker undercurrents you try to avoid. This isn't because INFJs set out to expose people deliberately. It happens naturally. Their sensitivity to energy, emotion, and subtle cues makes them pick up on contradictions others don't even notice. If you carry jealousy, insecurity, or hidden resentment, they'll feel it before you say a word. And because INFJs tend to mirror back what they sense, you suddenly find yourself confronted with your own unresolved emotions, sometimes in ways that feel uncomfortable, even threatening. For example, someone who secretly struggles with control issues may feel defensive around an INFJ because the INFJ's calm independence highlights that insecurity. A person hiding anger may find themselves triggered by an INFJ's quiet, probing questions. Even people who thrive on charm and manipulation feel unnerved because INFJs aren't dazzled by surface appearances. Instead, they quietly project back the truth, making it impossible to maintain the illusion. This shadow mirroring is one of the reasons people often describe INFJs as intense, even when they're not saying much. Just by being present, they bring hidden issues to light. For those seeking growth, this can be transformative. Many people look back and realize an INFJ was the one who helped them see what needed to change. But for those unwilling to face their shadows, it feels unbearable. That's why some people react with hostility, distance, or even fear, not because the INFJ did anything wrong, but because they saw too much. In this way, INFJs play a paradoxical role. They can be healers, helping people integrate their shadows, but also catalysts of discomfort, pushing people toward truths they'd rather avoid. Either way, their ability to reflect back the hidden self makes them unforgettable. Their calmness forces self-reflection. One of the most unnerving qualities of an INFJ is not their words, but their silence. When everyone else is reacting, escalating, or defending themselves, the INFJ remains calm. This calmness isn't passive, it's powerful. It acts like a mirror, forcing the people around them to confront their own behavior, their own motives, and their own emotions. While most people seek distraction or external validation when confronted, an INFJ's steady presence quietly strips those defenses away. Imagine being in the middle of an argument where the other person doesn't raise their voice, doesn't retaliate, and doesn't fall into your emotional traps. Instead, they remain still, grounded, and composed. For many, this is far more unsettling than shouting or confrontation because it leaves them with nowhere to hide. The absence of chaos highlights their own. The stillness of the INFJ exposes the storm inside others. This is why people often find themselves over-explaining, confessing, or even apologizing in the presence of an INFJ. The calm energy creates a kind of psychological vacuum, and in that space, people project their own truths. Someone hiding guilt will feel it rise to the surface. Someone masking anger will suddenly feel it intensify. Someone pretending to be confident will notice their insecurities bubbling up. The INFJ doesn't need to accuse, challenge, or argue. Their calmness does the work for them. But this gift also carries a darker edge. For people unwilling to face themselves, an INFJ's calm presence can feel intolerable. They may lash out, accusing the INFJ of being cold, detached, or judgmental, when in reality, it's their own reflection they're reacting to. On the other hand, those who are ready to grow often find themselves transformed by this experience. They leave the interaction with more clarity, more honesty, and sometimes even gratitude for being forced to see what they'd been avoiding. This ability to inspire self-reflection without saying much is one of the reasons INFJs are called human mirrors. Their calmness doesn't just soothe, it reveals. And for many, that revelation is both terrifying and liberating. They push growth by reflection. Being around an INFJ can feel like standing in front of an unfiltered mirror, not because they criticize or lecture, but because their presence naturally reflects back the truth you've been avoiding. This is one of the most misunderstood aspects of their personality. INFJs don't just observe people, they amplify what's already there, sometimes more clearly than those people see themselves. When an INFJ interacts with you, they listen deeply, they pick up on your tone, your energy, and your body language. Without consciously trying, they reveal the contradictions in your behavior. If you're lying to yourself about being happy in a relationship, their probing questions or quiet understanding will make you realize the cracks. If you're pretending you're confident but secretly insecure, their calm presence will pull that vulnerability to the surface. The growth they push isn't always comfortable, but it's transformative. Many people find this experience intimidating. They expect validation, but instead, the INFJ holds up a mirror to their inconsistencies. This can lead to resistance. Some feel judged, others lash out, and some even distance themselves to avoid the discomfort. But for those willing to face the reflection, the INFJ becomes a catalyst for deep growth. Their insight helps people break free from illusions, face their fears, and step into greater authenticity. What makes this so powerful is that INFJs don't push growth through force. They don't demand you change. They don't lecture or control. Instead, their quiet honesty and empathetic presence gently guide you toward confronting yourself. It's the kind of growth that lingers. Long after the conversation ends, you'll replay their words, their tone, or even just their silence, realizing that what they showed you was exactly what you needed to see. This is why INFJs are often remembered not for their surface-level interactions, but for the way they leave people changed. They don't just reflect who you are in the moment, they reflect who you could become if you're brave enough to accept the truth they show you. They withdraw when the reflection is rejected. Not everyone is ready to face the reflection that an INFJ naturally brings. When they hold up that invisible mirror, some people lean into it and grow, but many others push back. They deny, deflect, or even attack the INFJ for exposing truths they weren't prepared to confront. And this is where the darker, more protective side of the INFJ comes into play. They quietly withdraw. Withdrawal isn't a punishment, it's self-preservation. INFJs invest deeply in people, pouring out empathy, energy, and patience. But when that gift is consistently rejected or twisted, they feel the weight of futility. Why keep reflecting truths for someone who refuses to see? Why keep absorbing the storms of someone unwilling to grow? Instead of continuing the cycle, INFJs take a step back, often without warning. To outsiders, this withdrawal can feel abrupt, even cold. One day, the INFJ is listening intently, offering insights, guiding with empathy. The next, they're gone, silent, unavailable, unreachable. But behind that silence is a decision. They've recognized that their role as a mirror is no longer helping, only draining. Walking away becomes the only way to protect their own energy and inner peace. What makes this withdrawal so unsettling is its finality. Unlike others who argue or demand change, INFJs don't need a dramatic exit. Their silence speaks louder than confrontation. The person left behind is forced to sit with their own unresolved issues, the very ones the INFJ tried to illuminate, and in that silence, the rejected reflection becomes unavoidable. Yet, this withdrawal also has a hidden strength. By stepping away, INFJs preserve their authenticity and integrity. They refuse to waste their energy where it isn't valued. And often, their absence becomes the catalyst that finally forces others to reflect on what they've been running from all along. In this way, INFJs don't just hold up the mirror, they decide who is truly ready to look. When the reflection is rejected, they don't argue, they don't beg, and they don't force. They simply walk away, leaving the truth behind like an unshakable shadow that lingers long after they're gone. So, now you see why INFJs are often described as the human black mirror. They don't just listen to your words or watch your actions, they reflect back the truths you try to hide even from yourself. Sometimes that reflection brings healing, clarity, and growth. Other times, it brings discomfort, denial, and rejection. But whether you embrace it or resist it, the INFJ mirror never lies. If you've ever had an INFJ in your life, you know how unsettling and yet life-changing their presence can be. They see through your masks, sense your emotions, and silently challenge you to face your own shadows. And when you push them away, their withdrawal leaves a silence that speaks louder than anything they could ever say. But here's the real question. Are you brave enough to look into the mirror they hold up? Because facing that reflection could change everything about how you see yourself and your relationships. If this resonated with you, don't just click away. Subscribe to the channel, give this video a like, and share it with someone who needs to hear it today. And tell me in the comments, do you think you could handle seeing yourself through the eyes of an INFJ?